What happens when a rising star refuses to play the game of daytime television? When the cameras are live, the audience is buzzing, and millions are watching. Sometimes a conversation derails in ways no one can predict. Today, we're unpacking one of the most shocking talk show moments in recent memory. A clash so raw, so unexpected, that it left producers scrambling and audiences frozen in their seats. It all went down on the Clarkson show. For Teddy Swims, it was supposed to be a standard stop on his promo tour. Fresh off his new album, the tattooed soul singer with the gravel and honey voice was making his rounds, smiling through press junkets, telling his story on cue. But this time, things didn't go according to script. Kelly settled into her chair across from him, her trademark warmth radiating as the cameras rolled. The crowd cheered. The energy was light, familiar, exactly what they'd come for. "So, Teddy, congratulations on the new album," Kelly began, her voice upbeat. "The response has been incredible. Tell us about the creative process behind it." The question was safe, expected. But Teddy didn't answer right away. He leaned back, fingers drumming against his knee, eyes sweeping the room before finally settling on Kelly. "You know, Kelly," he said slowly, "I appreciate the platform. But I gotta ask, how much of what we're about to do here is actually real?" The air changed instantly. Kelly's practiced smile flickered. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone cautious. Teddy leaned forward, voice heavy. "I mean, how much of this conversation is scripted? How much of who I'm supposed to be in this chair was decided before I even walked in?" The audience murmured, shifting in their seats. Kelly gave a quick, nervous laugh and glanced off stage at the producers. "Teddy, we're here to talk about your music, your journey. That's what's real. That's what people want to hear. Is it, though?" Teddy shot back, his tone calm but razor sharp. "Because I've been on a lot of these shows lately and I'm starting to see a pattern. Everyone wants the same story. The same version of me. The reformed bad boy who found his voice. The tattooed teddy bear with soul. It's neat. It's tidy. It's marketable." The audience rippled with unease. Kelly's posture stiffened. "I think people connect with authenticity, Teddy," she said, forcing a smile. "That's what makes your story compelling." "Authenticity," Teddy repeated, almost spitting the word out. "That's interesting, coming from someone who built her career on a reality competition." The jab landed hard. Kelly's face hardened, her composure cracking for the first time. "Don't get me wrong," Teddy continued, pressing forward. "American Idol was huge for you. It made you a household name. But let's not pretend it wasn't manufactured too. That whole show was about selling a narrative, creating characters, playing a game." Kelly sat forward, her voice sharper now. "That show gave me opportunities I never would have had. It connected me to millions of fans who've supported me for 20 years. There's nothing manufactured about that." "I'm not questioning your talent, Kelly," Teddy replied, unflinching. "You can sing, you've earned your place. But you had to play the game to get here. You had to say what they wanted, be who they wanted, and now you're asking me to do the same." The studio was silent, except for the low hum of cameras still rolling. Off stage, producers whispered urgently, debating whether to cut to commercial. On stage, the confrontation had already crossed the point of no return. "We're here to talk about your music. Your art," Kelly said, her voice carefully even. "If that feels inauthentic to you, maybe the problem isn't with the format." Teddy smiled, slow and knowing. "There it is. The deflection. Instead of engaging with what I'm saying, you turn it back on me, as if I'm the problem. That's exactly what I'm talking about." Kelly's patience thinned. "What are you trying to accomplish here, Teddy? Honestly?" "I'm trying to have a real conversation," he shot back, his voice carrying an edge now. "I'm trying to talk about what it means to be an artist in an industry that packages authenticity and sells it like toothpaste. And every time I push there, you drag us back to safe ground." The studio fell silent. The tension was suffocating. Kelly leaned back, folding her arms. "I've had thousands of conversations with artists on this show. Some deep, some light, but all of them real. This idea that it's all manufactured? That's not what happens here, isn't it?" Teddy pressed. "Tell me, Kelly, when was the last time someone sat on this couch and genuinely surprised you? Said something that wasn't cleared by their publicist, their manager, their label?" Kelly paused, too long. The silence buzzed with the sound of cameras and whispered crew voices. Finally, she exhaled. When she spoke again, her voice carried something rawer than her TV polish. 3 years ago, she admitted, a young songwriter broke down talking about losing his dad. It was real. It was messy. But even that moment of vulnerability, got chopped into a 30-second viral clip with a clickbait headline. Teddy's expression softened, sensing the crack in her armor. So you do see it. You do understand what I'm saying. Of course I see it, Kelly replied, her tone firm again. But what's the alternative? We live in a world where everything gets dissected, turned into content. You think I don't know every word I say here is going to be clipped, reshared, memed? You think I don't feel the pressure to stay on script? Then why keep doing it? Teddy leaned forward, eyes burning. Why participate in something you know is hollow? Kelly let out a sharp laugh, edged with bitterness. Because it pays the bills, Teddy. Because I have a team of 100 people whose livelihoods depend on this show. Because, despite all the packaging, sometimes we connect with someone who really needs to hear something true. But at what cost? Teddy pressed harder. How much of yourself do you have to give up to keep the machine running? The words hit her like a punch. Kelly went quiet. Her hands twisted together in her lap. When she finally looked up, her eyes were different. Vulnerable, unguarded. More than I'd like to admit, she whispered. But that's the deal, isn't it? That's the price of this platform. It doesn't have to be, Teddy said softly, but with conviction. That's the lie we've all bought into, that to reach people we have to carve pieces of ourselves away. But what if we didn't? Kelly shook her head, frustration creeping back in. That's easy for you to say. You're just starting to navigate this industry. You still believe it's possible to change the rules. Wait until you've been doing this for 20 years, Kelly said, her voice low, steady. Wait until you've seen how quickly the machine can chew you up and spit you out if you don't play along. You think I haven't been chewed up already? Teddy's voice cracked with heat. You think getting here was some fairy tale? I spent years grinding in dive bars, playing to 10 people on a Tuesday night while industry execs walked past me because I didn't fit their mold. The only reason I'm sitting in this chair right now is because I refused to change who I was. And yet, Kelly cut in, leaning forward, here you are, on a mainstream talk show, promoting an album on a major label. Looks to me like you figured out how to play the game after all. The words hung like a gauntlet thrown. Teddy's jaw tightened, his fingers digging into the arms of his chair. You think this is playing the game? You think calling out the system while sitting inside it makes me a hypocrite? I think it's complicated, Kelly replied, calm but sharp. I think it's easy to rail against the system when you're still cashing the checks. You're here because your label wants you here, because your management knows millions of people are watching. So tell me, Teddy, how is that any different from what the rest of us do? The studio went dead quiet. Not a shuffle, not a cough, just the hum of the cameras, catching every flicker of tension between them. Teddy let the silence stretch before finally speaking, his voice measured but unyielding. The difference is I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not sitting here feeding people a sanitized version of my creative process while dodging anything real. I'd rather make someone uncomfortable than sell them a lie. I'm having the conversation that needs to be had, Teddy said, his voice unwavering. Even if it means burning bridges. Burning bridges? Kelly repeated, her tone cutting. Is that what you think you're doing here? Let me tell you something, Teddy. This industry has a long memory. It doesn't forgive people who bite the hand that feeds them. Maybe that's the problem, Teddy shot back. Maybe the reason everything feels so sanitized, so fake, is because everyone's too afraid of biting the wrong hand. Kelly leaned forward, her intensity matching his. You call it fake, I call it professional. You call it sanitized, I call it accessible. Not everything needs to be a philosophical debate about authenticity. Sometimes people just want to feel good, to be entertained, to escape their lives for an hour. And sometimes, Teddy countered, they need to be challenged. They need someone willing to say what everyone else is thinking, but too afraid to voice. Challenged about what exactly? Kelly snapped, her composure cracking. What grand revelation are you serving here? That the industry is manufactured? That television has formats and expectations? That's not breaking news, Teddy. The truth I'm pointing out, Teddy fired back, his voice rising, is that we're all complicit. We've created a culture where artists have to choose between authenticity and success, where surface-level chatter about inspiration and process gets passed off as meaningful, when really it's just marketing copy. Kelly shot to her feet, her chair rolling back with a loud scrape. The audience gasped. You know what, Teddy? If sitting here, on a national platform, reaching millions of people, is such an insult to your precious artistic integrity, maybe you should have stayed in those dive bars. Teddy didn't move. He sat coiled, massive frame taut with tension, his eyes locked on her. When he finally spoke, his voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. There it is. The real Kelly Clarkson. Not the bubbly host, not the mentor figure, just someone who gets nasty the second their worldview is threatened. Kelly pointed a finger at him, her voice shaking with anger. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me like you know a damn thing about my life or my career. Slowly, deliberately, Teddy rose from his chair. He towered over her, the shift in physical presence so stark the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I don't need to know your life story, he said, calmer now but no less firm. I only need to see how you react. The moment someone pushes past the comfortable script, you shut it down. Every single time. I'm not shutting anything down, Kelly snapped back. I'm defending myself. From someone who came onto my show with an agenda to tear down everything I've built. Your show, Teddy repeated slowly, emphasizing the words. Interesting phrasing. So this isn't about art anymore. This is about territory. Kelly flushed, her voice sharp, defensive. Damn right it's my show. I've spent years building this, creating a place where artists feel safe telling their stories. And you waltz in here acting like it's meaningless. I never said meaningless, Teddy replied, maddeningly calm. I said manufactured. There's a difference. Something can serve a purpose and still not be authentic. Kelly let out a harsh laugh. Authentic. You keep throwing that word around like you own it. Let me tell you what authentic is, Teddy. Authentic is showing up every single day. Authentic is caring about the people who watch this show, who rely on it for comfort, who discover music through these conversations. That's what authenticity looks like. Not standing on a stage and pretending you're the only one with truth in your pocket. Authentic, Teddy shot back, is also being willing to admit when something isn't working. When the format's gotten so rigid that real conversations can't even happen anymore. Real conversations? Kelly scoffed, shaking her head. What do you think we're having right now? This feels pretty real to me. This only became real, Teddy said evenly, when you stopped trying to control it. The moment you dropped the script and actually responded instead of steering us back to safe territory. Kelly froze, the accuracy cutting deeper than she wanted to admit. For half a second, her expression flickered, recognition, even agreement, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She leaned in, sharp again. Fine, she snapped. You want real? Here's real. You're talented, Teddy, no question. But you're also arrogant. You think a little success, a loyal fan base, gives you the right to waltz onto established shows and lecture the people who built them about authenticity. And you, Teddy fired back instantly, are defensive. You've built your whole post-idol career on being the relatable, down-to-earth celebrity, but the second someone questions the system you're part of, you show just how invested you are in keeping it intact. The words flew like gunfire now, both of them past the point of restraint. Kelly stepped closer, lowering her voice to an intense whisper the mic still caught. You think you're enlightened, that you're above it all. But you're just another artist who thinks the world owes you something because you can carry a tune. Teddy's jaw tightened, his calm cracking at last. And you're just another industry gatekeeper who's forgotten what it felt like to be hungry. To have something real to say? Gatekeeper? Kelly's voice spiked, sharp enough to echo. I've used this platform to showcase hundreds of new artists. I've given them chances they never would have had otherwise. Within the boundaries of what's acceptable, Teddy countered. Within the neat little parameters of what fits the format. That's not the same as genuine support. Don't you dare lecture me about supporting artists, Kelly snapped, her voice trembling with fury now. "I've been in this industry longer than you. I've seen what happens to people who don't understand how to survive it professionally." "Professionally," Teddy repeated with disdain, almost spitting the word. There it is, the magic word. The excuse for every compromise, every sanitized interview, every conversation that could have mattered but didn't. Because someone was too worried about being professional. Kelly threw up her hands, exasperated. "What do you want from me, Teddy? What's the endgame here? Do you want me to sit here and say my career is fake? That everything I've built is a lie?" "I want you to admit there's a problem," Teddy said, his voice suddenly quiet but razor-sharp. The studio hushed with him. "I want you to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, we've all gotten so comfortable with the way things are that we've stopped asking whether they should be different." "And then what?" Kelly demanded, stepping forward again. "Say I admit it. Say I agree the industry's too manufactured, too controlled. Then what? Do we all quit? Do we burn it down? Walk away from the platforms that reach millions of people?" Teddy didn't flinch. His answer came soft, but it carried through the silence like a strike. "We start having real conversations. We stop pretending everything is perfect. We stop selling comfort and start acknowledging the contradictions, the things that actually matter." Kelly stared at him for a long, unblinking moment, her chest rising and falling like she'd just come up for air. The studio was dead silent. No whispers, no shuffling, just the hum of lights and the collective thrum of hearts beating faster. When she finally spoke, her voice barely carried beyond a whisper. "You don't understand what you're asking," she said. "You have no idea what it would mean to tear down the very systems that let shows like this even exist." Teddy didn't flinch. He leaned forward, gaze steady, voice calm but cutting. "Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Maybe some systems are built to be torn down." The words hit like a gauntlet thrown at her feet. The tension thickened and Kelly's face shifted. Shock, then anger, then something rawer, something closer to fear. For a few breathless seconds, neither moved. Their stare-down felt less like a disagreement and more like a verdict being written in real time, one that could shape the whole industry. Teddy broke the silence. "Real people are being failed by this machine. Artists with voices worth hearing get buried because they don't fit the mold. Audiences are fed the same safe, recycled stories because they test well. Because they don't ruffle feathers!" Kelly snapped back, louder now, the crack in her voice betraying her. "And your answer is what? Burn it all down? Destroy the only platforms that give at least some people a shot?" Teddy's jaw tightened. His words came like a surge, impossible to stop. "My answer is to stop pretending this is the best we can do. To stop calling it naive to want something better. To stop treating hope like it's a weakness." Kelly shook her head slowly, anger draining into something closer to pity. "You know what your problem is, Teddy? You think you're the first artist to notice the cracks, the first to rail against the machine. But people far smarter than you, with decades more experience, have tried to change this business." Teddy didn't even blink. "And you know what happens to them? They get pushed to the margins, branded as difficult, shut out until they either bend or disappear." "Exactly," Kelly shot back, her voice sharpening with conviction. "So what makes you think you're any different?" For the first time all night, Teddy smiled. A real smile, defiant, fearless. "Because I'm not afraid of disappearing. I was nothing before this. I'll be nothing after if that's what it takes. But at least I'll be nothing on my own terms." The words struck Kelly like a blow. She stumbled half a step back, her hand gripping the chair beside her as though the ground itself had shifted. "That's naive, Teddy," she said, her voice trembling with fury and disbelief. "You think integrity is some magic shield that makes you immune to consequences?" "No," Teddy answered, steady as stone. "I think integrity is the only thing that makes the consequences worth enduring. What's the point of success if you have to lose yourself to get it?" "The point," Kelly snapped, her voice rising until it filled the studio, "is that success gives you a platform, influence, power to help other people." "Help them do what?" Teddy's tone cut through hers. "Learn how to conform? Survive inside the same broken system you're defending?" That was it. Kelly broke. Her composure cracked wide open, anger spilling out in a raw, unfiltered eruption. "I'm not defending a broken system," she shouted, her words echoing through the rafters. "I'm trying to survive in it. I'm trying to make the best of reality while you stand there judging everyone who isn't living up to your impossible standard of purity." The audience gasped. It was a sound that rippled across the room like a wave. Teddy, in contrast, remained perfectly calm, eyes locked on hers. "There it is," he said softly. "The truth. You're not angry at me. You're angry at yourself. At the compromises you've made. At the choices you regret. Don't," Kelly whispered, her voice breaking, thin as glass. "Don't you dare turn this into therapy." "I'm not," Teddy said, gentler now, almost kind. "But, Kelly, you've spent the last 20 minutes defending a system you've already admitted is flawed. You've said yourself these conversations are scripted, that authenticity is rare, that everything gets packaged and sold. So why tear me apart for saying what you already know?" Kelly froze, her breathing slowing, shoulders sagging under the weight of his words. For a long, unbearable moment, she couldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Because if you're right, then everything I've built, everything I've sacrificed, is part of the problem." The confession hung in the air like a verdict no one wanted to claim. For the first time, Teddy's expression softened. The fire in him dimmed to something almost tender. "It doesn't have to be all or nothing," he said. "You can admit the system is broken without erasing what you've achieved inside it." "Can I?" Kelly asked, eyes glassy with doubt. "Because right now it feels like the only choice is between being part of the problem or pretending to be the solution." "Maybe the solution," Teddy said, leaning in, his voice steady but gentle, "starts right here, with conversations like this one, with asking the hard questions, even when the answers aren't clean." Kelly's eyes swept across the studio. The audience sat frozen, wide-eyed. Crew members shifted anxiously behind the cameras, unsure if they were witnessing brilliance or disaster. Every lens, every microphone had been capturing their unfiltered clash in real time. She let out a shaky laugh, though her voice cracked under the weight of it. "This conversation is going to destroy both of our careers. Or maybe," Teddy said, calm but unflinching, "it'll start something new. Maybe it shows people that real conversations are still possible, even in places built to avoid them." Kelly studied him, the corner of her mouth twitching into the faintest smile. "You're remarkably optimistic for someone who just spent half an hour tearing the industry to shreds." "I'm not tearing it apart," Teddy replied, his tone softer now, almost reflective. "I'm just refusing to pretend it works when it doesn't." For the first time since the clash began, Kelly turned to face the camera head-on. Her posture straightened, her voice steadied. "Well," she said, her words ringing with clarity, "I guess our viewers just got a very different kind of show than they were expecting." Beside her, Teddy shifted forward, his gaze following hers straight into the lens. "The real question," he said, deliberate and direct, "is what we do with conversations like this. Do we bury them and pretend they never happened? Or do we use them as a starting point for something better?" Kelly's throat tightened. She knew the challenge wasn't only aimed at her, it was aimed at every single person watching. Slowly, she nodded. "That's a question worth asking." For a beat, neither of them moved. The tension that had filled the studio gave way to something heavier, something closer to respect. They hadn't found an answer, but they'd refused to look away. Finally, Kelly turned to him. She extended her hand, not as a host but as a peer. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not letting me off the hook." Teddy took her hand, his grip firm, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he replied, "for not cutting to commercial." The audience erupted. What began as scattered claps swelled into a thunderous ovation, applause crashing against the walls like a release of everything they'd been holding inside. It wasn't just for the spectacle they'd witnessed, but for the courage it had taken to break through the facade. The cameras lingered on the handshake, on the two figures caught in a fragile moment of truth, Neither could quite categorize. And then, with the weight of everything unsaid still hanging in the air, the show faded to black.